We're rolling. Okay, so what we're doing is last time we made a server, and that server served a very basic web page with probably the lamest app that we've ever seen, but it was an app. It was a front end. We just sent some text to the browser that said "Hello World." A problem with that is it's extremely hard to build out an actual app, and that's kind of where JavaScript frameworks come into play, and that's what we're gonna sort of do for this video. Is we're gonna install a JavaScript framework and then see how we can build out an actual front end that we're gonna use eventually for our WAP or for our app. And so yeah, sound good?
Sounds great. So just to make sure I got it, last time we made an app, but it literally just sent text. We want to make a more exciting app that requires getting a little bit more complicated, building a front end to use industry language.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So this framework, and I say framework because it's built in JavaScript. So this is like a framework built on top of JavaScript that helps us make apps. And the one that we're going to use is React. There's like a ton of them out there. The ecosystem for JavaScript is huge. There's other ones like Angular and Vue, but React is one of the most popular out there right now. And because of that, there's a ton of awesome plugins and tutorials and resources out there to use with React. And that's like one of the main draws, among other things. There's also other things about the framework itself, but that's like one of the huge draws about using React is just that there's so many resources out there for using it. So that's what we're going to use.
Love it. For tech, it's sometimes good to be in the majority. It's half the reason I own an Apple computer. It's just a lot of people have the problem if I have it.
Honestly, it's very important, and it helps a ton to be able to Google something or copy and paste a problem, and then like there's a tutorial on it and you can just learn about it. There's nothing worse than having a framework that nobody uses and there's not any solutions out there, and you kind of have to just slog through it yourself,
So
which
lonely.
you know has its moments, but is not generally my favorite thing to do. Okay, cool. So the way we're gonna do this, there's also like somebody built a tool to help us create a React app really quickly, and they called it Create React App. So we're gonna use that to basically just install all of this stuff that we're gonna need to make our app, and that's gonna help us like get our feet off the get our feet wet.
Feet
really
wet and under
quickly.
us. I love it. They'll be slippery.
They will be slippery. So let's actually just install this tool that we're going to use. So we're going to use it it's like a command line tool. So we'll use it in the terminal, and then it'll just install a bunch of stuff and create a bunch of files for us. So just do npm install create React app, and then -g. So we'll just install it globally, so we'll have it.
Sound good?
Yep. That sounds great.
So using Node Package Manager to install what's called create-react-app, that's a single thing. And then I really like this, so let's get her globally.
Indeed.
And so this is installing a package, and you're telling me that this package helps quickly put together a React app. Does it also, am I also installing React right now?
Yeah. So like, along with the things that it helps us develop with, it'll also install React. And when I say install React, that's like another package. Well, okay, so backtrack. It's not installing React right now, but we will in a second. Okay, so now we should have access to that command line tool that we just installed. So just do create React app space client, and then so we're creating this React app in a directory called client.
Got it. And so it's going to create a folder, and now it's going to install React in this project.
Exactly. Yep. It's going to install a bunch of stuff. One of those things being React. So yeah, so it actually just says it right there. It's installing React, React DOM, React scripts with create React app template. and it truly has to install a lot of stuff. So this might take a little bit. But,
right. Do you know what the number is on the bottom right? 1681.
It's maybe the number of bytes, megabytes, maybe. I don't know. Maybe kilobytes or widgets. I'm not sure. I have no idea.
It's a big number, and we know we need to get to it before we can proceed.
Happy hacking. Okay. We just installed a buttload of stuff.
Love it.
Cool. So the only thing that's different about our left-hand side is that client folder, right? So we just installed a bunch of stuff into that client folder. So if you open
this
it
thing
up,
right here.
Yeah, that thing. And so that's where all of our client code will live. All of our React code, everything that has to do with the browser or the client. To drive that point home, sometimes people even make totally separate repos for the server and the client. We are not. We have a mono repo. So we have them both in the same one.
I feel like some tech companies are organized around this. Like there's a team that works on client, and there's a team that works on server, and maybe they're in the same building, maybe they're not.
Yeah, I'm 100% positive that a lot of teams operate like that. And yeah, and so yeah, a lot of people, like, you might be hired as a backend developer or whatever, and they'll say, also they throw around the term full stack developer, which just means that you are capable of developing on a back end or a front end, and everything in between. So cool. Let's did you open up that client folder? Can you open that up
just to take a gander.
Yeah, let's take a gander, see what's inside. So we got a lot of green. That's all this new stuff. Inside the client folder, there's its own package.json, so it kind of operates independently from the server, like the one directory above it. So you install packages to your client separately than you do to the outside directory. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Cool. And so you got your separate node modules there. You got your own git ignore. Inside the source directory is probably the most important one. That's where all of our React code's going to live. We'll end up creating, tons of files are going to live in here, and they're all probably going to be like React files. And then lastly, you have that public folder, which will store like images and assets, and stuff like that. So let's get into the meat of this. Actually, you know what? Let's just start up the app. So if you go into your terminal,
mm-hmm.
and you'll actually have to go into the client directory.
I love that they give it to you right here. They say you should change directory to client, and then you should start her up.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So we're gonna basically this beautiful package that you've introduced us to just created everything that all I have to do is tell Yarn, hey, begin the web app, and we'll have something.
Yeah. Yep. Like, of course, you don't have to use Create React App. You could do all this stuff yourself, and you probably learn a lot along the way. but this is just us trying to get running quickly. So booting it up, and it should open up a browser window for you. Okay, there you go. Should be up in a sec. And there's an app. That's a front end. Cool. So that's what we have. That's like the default thing. We haven't actually touched anything yet. So this is what they give us. If you go back to your editor, and let's see where this is coming from. It's going to be in that app.js file.
Mm-hmm.
So if you open that up, that's got a lot of stuff. I mean, not really, actually, not that much, but a lot of new stuff. So looking through this, one important thing to notice is just the type of code that we see. Generally, you don't that's a bunch of HTML. Like, we have a div, we have a header, we have an image tag.
All this
like those are all those are all HTML tags, which are not usually embedded in JavaScript. And that's because we're using a special language called JSX, and that's like special pretty much to React. React was like created this language to help us integrate JavaScript and HTML better. So like basically we can kind of just like embed HTML directly in our JavaScript, and that makes developing on the front end just way easier. In my opinion, of course, people have opinions, but I think it's pretty slick.
I thought, like, before when we did the hello world, I remember us talking through two separate functions, and I'm only seeing a single function here.
Yeah, so we're creating this function. All this function does is return a value, and in this case, this value is all of that HTML,
is this whole
JSX.
thing.
Yep, and then we export this whole component at the bottom when it says export default app. And then, so our app can be used elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So our app is actually imported in another file and then rendered. But basically what you have to know is that this is essentially where the whole app gets kicked off. Everything in here, we'll end up putting like all of our code in here, not in one file, but we'll import it in and kind of put it in here. So you can kind of think of it as this like big tree where your app's at the top. And then we'll have other components that we'll import in, and those will have components, and those will have components. And so everything kind of like cascades down from your single one component up at the top.
All about hierarchy. And the thing I always do is just like change some stuff around to make sure I can. So I just saved it, and I got from period to exclamation point. So I sort of feel in control. I feel like I can get my arms around this app to some degree.
Totally. Yeah, and one huge magical part about this whole thing that it's set up for us is that automatic reload, which seems like something that should always be a thing when you're developing, but it is certainly not. And the way that they have it set up with a lot of these tools help us just like, so it knows when you save and then it reloads the browser for you, which is kind of game changing in my. And then
just as one more exercise to make sure I've got my arms around this, we've got this really cool spinning GIF or image here. How do I map that to the code? If I just reason through it, it looks like we're calling this logo.svg, which I assume is an image file, and we've got it, we insert it right here, so that bracket must mean execute that string. But what the heck's making it spin?
Yep, you're right on track. So we're importing it. So this actually reads pretty intuitively, right? We're like importing this logo from a separate file, and then we're going to insert that into as the source for this image tag. So this is just a normal HTML image tag, right? And then we add this class. So a class is a type of, it's not, tag's not the right word because that means something else, but you're essentially adding this identifier to this image called app logo. And then that's where our CSS comes in, or our styling. So if we go to app.css, these are all the styles that we apply to that image and everything else in our app.js file. So the class is called app logo, right? So we find app logo. Everything that says .app logo means that we're targeting that specific HTML tag, right? And the dot just means that it's a class. So that's like a signifier that you're using a class name. And so like basically that image is going to have a height of 40 actually means like, this is a fun unit, but you can specify the height and you can say that there's no pointer events. And then this is like another kind of special selector that applies to the browser preferences. So if somebody has a preference in their browser, I don't know where this setting exists, but it must exist somewhere where they prefer not to have motion, then they will not get this. But since they have no preference, then it's going to spin.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's how we get the spinning. And so it's the CSS. There, I was thinking there was a GIF sort of here, but actually we've got an image, an SVG image, and then the CSS specifies we'll spin that image at this rate. I love it.
Yep. If you go down, so app logo spin is the name of the animation, and at the bottom you can see there's like a little definition for the keyframes, and what it goes. So it starts, so it rotates 0 degrees to 360 and then just does that forever.
Oh, it's a function here.
Yep.
That function?
Well, it's like a CSS version of it. It's not really a function. It's like it's just defining, it's not technically a function, I should say.
Got it.
It's just defining how the animation is going to run.
Got it. Nice. It's lower in the hierarchy though.
Yep.
Cool. I love it.
Cool.
So we've got an app up and running, and I'm sure in the future we can make it our own a little bit than the default, but it's fun to have something other than Hello World on the screen.
Totally. Yep. And let's see. And it wouldn't be, I'd be remiss if I didn't set it up with our linters because I think it's going to help us be like invaluable to us later. So as you can see, there are no squiggly lines right now, and we're going to need some of those squiggly lines. So let's create another .eslint.rc.js, so another config file inside the client.
So new file, and then inside here, we already have one outside here, but we want to do .eslint.rc.js, which pertains just to the client-y stuff.
Yeah, and I actually think that these files work a little differently than like the package.json in that they will override each other. So like I'm pretty sure the outermost one will impact the inner ones, but then you can override rules inside. So like we could put different rules or override rules inside this one.
That was gonna be my question. Like, do we format code? Do we lint differently because we're in the client folder? Why don't we just have a single lint on the outside in the main folder?
Yeah, the main reason for having this separate one is because now we have JSX and we have kind of like a different style of coding than we do on the back end. And part of it also has to do with just like the syntaxes that we're going to use with JavaScript. So if you want to... Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to copy and paste in some good linting functions, and that's in the inner one. And then
so that's going to be our client linter.
And then now let me open up the outer one, and we're going to do different rules. I'm going to override these rules.
Yeah, we're just going to simplify some of this stuff because it had some React and front end stuff that we don't actually need on the back end. So we're just.
Is there like an extra period there at the bottom?
Doesn't look like it.
All right, cool. I think we're good. All right, save the linters. They're ready to get to work. But if I remember one thing, they're ready. They're linting. But I do remember you saying sometimes for some of our viewers, they're gonna have to do the what's it called, restart.
Yeah, restart that server. It didn't look like we needed to, but sometimes it's really finicky.
And it's funny, we like red squiggly lines.
Well, I mean, they're kind of scary, but they also help me a lot. So
there they are.
They will save your butt. Cool, and then just hit save. We should get some fixes. Yup.
Because we set it up so it's like fix on save.
Yep. So what do we got? I'm
not getting any fixes.
Oh, if you hover over the squiggles? I think they'd already fixed the spacing for you.
Got it. Oh, React must be in scope, so we must need to include React up in the imports, right?
Yep. Yeah, so go ahead and import React from React.
Give me a
exactly.
colon so the linter doesn't have to do that.
Oh, typo alert.
Reach.
Cool. And then so and the last one is
JSX. So we got to rename this thing JSX because we're using your fancy JSX stuff. Why wouldn't it automatically name it JSX, this client React thing?
Because that's potentially something that could ruin your app. Like depending on what you're using, like that's not something that's just like, the same in both contexts. It's actually could be totally different.
Is this a problem? No such file directory, app.js? Do we need to switch something that calls it?
I would just stop the server and restart it. I think it's just because we changed the name of the file, so now it's like, oh god, where'd it go? But I'm pretty sure now if it'll compile correctly.
Got it. yarn start, and it is starting up. Yeah.
Okay, dude. Okay, wait. So last thing is now, interestingly, that we set all those lint rules, it won't actually let you see the app until you fix those rules, which is pretty strict. You can actually turn those off, but let's go ahead and fix those.
What are they?
If you go to so it it shows them in the terminal there. So report web vitals. So maybe go in there and hit save.
Can't I just type something down here to fix it all for me?
Well, if you just open it up and hit save, that should fix most of them.
Source report web vitals.
Yep. Okay, and then go to source index. That seems like it's the other one that's causing mayhem.
Index.js.
Yeah. Hit save. I bet it's, yep, it wants you to change it to JSX too.
It's a game of whack-a-mole.
Restart it. Now we can cross our fingers. Compiled successfully. Boom.
We're good.
We're good. Good work.